I'm Connor Olt, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Control Chaos. Today we're going to be looking at a stylistic, visual, incredibly emotional director, and that is Tim Burton. And I'm not talking about him specifically, I'm talking about his movies, of course. So, if you haven't been introduced to the series, maybe this is your first video, welcome back. I'm Connor Olt. Essentially what we do is we break down a director every single week. We've done Scorsese and Spielberg, and so now we're going into a little bit of a darker, different path, and that is with Tim Burton. And what we do is we look at their best movie, in my opinion, my favorite movie of theirs, and then essentially what makes him great. That's sort of the whole thing where, why do people like Tim Burton? Why do people consider his movies good? Or why are people fans of him? He has definitely a loyal fan base. And really, the one word that you think of when you think of Tim Burton, at least for a lot of people and for me, is gothic. A lot of people like to use the word emo, which I think is actually the complete opposite version of that. But he's definitely sort of a crazy, sort of kookier director that uses a lot of dark colors like blacks and grays into his movies. And I say the word gothic because it does sort of have that feel to it, and a lot of people do sort of think of it as an emo feel. I just don't use the word emo because I think his movies are actually, well, I guess that could work, but they're very emotional. Sometimes, people think emo a lack of emotion or almost too emotional, and I think Tim Burton has a real nice sort of sweetness and a heart to it. And another thing that he likes to do is really the characters, and for me, that's one thing that really makes me like Tim Burton, because I'm a fan of his. And that is not necessarily because I remember this great, amazing visual shots that are like panning and whatnot, incredible camera tricks, or really nice dialogue or stuff like that, or even the story sometimes. I don't really know what happened to Edward Scissorhands or Ed Wood. They're almost just like chronicles of life, because what he really does focus on is, yes, he has beautiful production design and cinematography works into that, but really I think the main heart of a lot of his movies are, I think, his characters, and especially the main protagonists. In a lot of movies, whether it be Big Fish or Ed Wood or Edward Scissorhands, there's one central protagonist and we sort of follow him. And his relationship with others, or his lack of relationships, for example, Edward Scissorhands and loneliness. And really that's what I remember of the characters, is that he really can make you feel for the protagonist, and he's always picking like weird sort of lonely, outsider, weirdo sort of areas or characters, but he really makes you sympathize with them. And because I think that really works, because if you take, I think really the outsider story is something that's not really keen to only outsiders. I feel like everybody feels like an outsider. Even if you look at all of the Disney musicals, so many people love those Disney musicals, myself included, but you start looking down them, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, even Mulan, Pocahontas, a lot of them are outsiders, or people who don't fit in, and they try to fit in somehow. And I think Tim Burton does a great job with that in terms of, I relate back to the Disney princesses almost because sometimes his movies feel sort of fairy tale-esque, or he has animation like Corpse Bride or Frankenweenie, or he has musicals like Sweeney Todd. So there are some similarities to sort of a Disney musical princess-esque, and I see those similarities, and number one mostly being the outsider status of it. And really just seeing people and sort of that look weird on the outside, but once you get to know them, they're real people. And that's the main thing that he's able to get throughout the story, is that it's not necessarily just the story of like, oh my god, so many things are happening to this person, but it's definitely an emotional arc compared to a character sort of story-driven arc, where you really see the character either change emotionally, or he learns new things. And it doesn't have to be these big, grandiose sort of action movie-esque arcs where they're completely different people, but you really feel that emotional center to it. And even though he has sort of like these dark, dreary, almost lack of emotion visuals, a really interesting juxtaposition with the contrast of having incredibly visual characters. And I think that's my favorite part of it. And someone like Ed Wood is maybe my favorite Tim Burton character, which we'll get later on. And then another thing, I also like to make a comparison between him and Wes Anderson. Of course, that's sort of an obvious comparison, but mostly because of their visual style. Of course, Wes Anderson has an incredibly distinctive visual style, and same with Tim Burton. I think you could show me any screenshot of either one of those guys, and I could tell you what movie it's from, or just like who directs it, of course. Tim Burton is a little less varied than Wes Anderson, And however, he's been doing this for a long time. Batman Returns, or even the original Batman, that's '89, and then you see now with Miss Peregrine's School to Procure Their Children in 2016. They're like, that's a huge career spanning, but they have very similar sort of looks and feels to them. And that's another thing I was reading about, is that Tim Burton apparently doesn't read comic books, but yet he did a Batman film. Interesting, like how he can sort of do that. And he actually does a lot of remakes, a lot of unsuccessful ones. Planet of the Apes, not a good movie. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I wasn't a fan of. I know a lot of people weren't. Alice in Wonderland, again, not a fan of it. So for me, Tim Burton's the best when he's doing original ideas, like Edward Scissorhands, like a Sweeney Todd wasn't, but sort of giving that, in a sense, or like Sleepy Hollow, for example. That's based on a short story, I believe, but he really made it his own and really made those visuals come to life in a sense. So he's really a great job, like Wes Anderson, at those visuals and having distinctive visuals, but really having sort of like these weird, quirky characters. So in a sense, they're both similar. And also, not to mention, both Wes Anderson and Tim Burton have the unique skill of being able to switch between animation and live action. Other directors have done it, something like Brad Bird, but haven't been successful in my opinion. Brad Bird mostly good for animation, but Mission Impossible, he did that sort of like cookie cutter formula. So maybe you'll give it to that one for him. But Tomorrowland, I was not a fan of. So some people try to go between live action and animation, but it doesn't really work. But I think someone like a Wes Anderson, even though he's only done it once now, did it so well. And same with Tim Burton with Going to the Corpse Bride and Frankenweenie. I think and even if you consider Nightmare Before Christmas one, I know Tim Burton did not direct that, but he had a heavily involvement into it. And so many people consider it a Tim Burton film. It's often, mistaken as a Tim Burton film, but really it's Henry Selick, I believe. But yeah, so even having this incredible animation and then going to live action and nailing it that way, it's very interesting. And I personally don't think Tim Burton's dead. I think Tim Burton's sort of evolving. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you look at Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood back in the days, the good old days, and now he's sort of making Alice in Wonderland and Miss Peregrine's, and they're not really working out so well, and they're not doing too good, critically at least. And I don't think Miss Peregrine's did that good well financially either. But I think though, something like Big Eyes or even Big Fish, which I know Big Fish was a little further back, but Big Eyes, for example, I thought he actually did a really great job with. I enjoyed that a lot, mostly because I'm a huge Amy Adams fan, but I still enjoy that movie quite a bit. And I know that people, when the theater, I know that it wasn't a huge critical hit, but I remember talking to people after walking the theaters, because I actually saw the movie twice. And everyone I talked to or heard over, they actually really enjoyed the movie. It's more of a safe movie, but they really enjoyed it. That's not my favorite one, actually. So we might as well transition into the best and favorite. Normally I separate the two, but today my best, what I think is Tim Burton's best, and my personal favorite is Ed Wood for both of them. I love this movie. Let's start off with sort of the favorite part of it. I saw this about 3 years ago, so pretty recently actually, and it really sort of blew me away. It was not because people are like, oh, this is Tim Burton's best film, or I wasn't necessarily getting into Tim Burton lore. It was just because this was Johnny Depp's best performance. People were arguing that, and actually I agree. You see something like Captain Jack Sparrow or Edward Scissorhands, or something like Donnie Brasco or Fear Loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, Johnny Depp or Color Purple. Johnny Depp is an incredible actor, and has lost sort of his game over the years. People say I sort of agree with that. Although he was good in something like Black Mass, very restrained, so he still has it in him. But I just think that Ed Wood is his best performance, and I think it's Tim Burton's arguably his best character. Of course, you have great characters like Jack Skellington, which I'll count because he created that character, or even Edward Scissorhands, so iconic and unique to now today. To even like that Johnny Depp's Charlie and Willy Wonka, the way he sort of visualized that, super interesting. But really, that's what I love about this movie. Ed Wood, like I said, relating it back to the main theme, is the character of Ed Wood. He's so passionate and he's so optimistic. It's infectious. It really is. He's, if you don't know Ed Wood, arguably the worst director of all time, sort of gone down as the worst director of all time. He's made terrible movies, but he was able to still continue those movies because even though he was so obsessed about making a certain shot that he didn't worry about acting or continuity or how the plot works. He was just so focused on one at a time because he was really passionate about the movie and really thought about everything, but didn't sort of get the whole picture. And even in the movie, he always says like, "Oh, Orson Welles wrote, direct, and starred in Citizen Kane at 23 or whatever it was." And he says, "I want to do that," because he really believes that he is going to be Orson Welles, and his passion really is so infectious, and his optimism. Even still, when they're saying like, "Oh, we only have like $10,000 to make this movie," and he's like, "Oh, perfect, we have money to make a movie." He's very optimistic, even though he's called the worst director of all time, and his movies get crapped on. He still enjoys the process and still wants to make movies and try again. Also, what I love about Ed Wood is having that transvestite element into it for Glenn and Glenda. Actually, it feels very modern in a sense. We're dealing with that problem right now, and this was a guy who was doing it so much later. So it's having that sort of more relevant almost now than it was in '94 when it released, and even more relevant than it was when Ed Wood was still alive. And what I love about Johnny Depp's performance in this is that he's kooky and he's sort of like zany, but he does a great job where he's not Captain Jack Sparrow, where he's like totally off the wall, and he's not like Edward Scissorhands, where he's very contained and silent. He strikes that perfect middle, which is for me my perfect favorite Johnny Depp, where he totally embodies the character. He falls and transforms into the character, not by wearing a bunch of scissors on his hands and crazy hair, just a very pencil mustache and slick back hair. Just an incredible job at really seeping into the character and making believe that I'm not watching Johnny Depp, I'm watching Ed Wood. Another one of my favorite parts, and one of the great parts about this movie, is the supporting cast. Of course, Martin Landau, and we'll talk about Martin Landau in a second, but the supporting cast from the little characters, Patricia Arquette's in it, Bill Murray does an awesome job in it. Who else? Oh yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio, that's it. So yeah, we got playing Orson Welles actually. So you got a wide variety of great supporting cast members that sort of pop up here and there that are really interesting, and you're like, oh my god, this person did it, and they all give stellar performances that sort of support Ed Wood and his life and really give a nice dimension to it. But now going back to Martin Landau, who plays Bela Lugosi, that's really the central character for me in terms of, aside from Ed Wood, of course. And it really is the relationship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi. I think Ed Wood, I love this because you could take something like Edward Scissorhands or Big Fish, and it really is, like, Big Fish would be about Ewan McGregor, Albert Finney, that Billy Crudup's dad. And in Edward Scissorhands, of course, it's about Edward Scissorhands, and even Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's more about Willy Wonka, because Charlie really sort of gets left to the side, which was something I didn't really like about it. But those are the main characters. But some of my favorites of his, something like A Corpse Bride, even something like A Sweeney Todd, and most importantly now, Ed Wood, is the two central characters. He has a great central character in Ed Wood, right? But then he also has Martin Landau, and it's so great because it's about their relationship as friends. Just a great friendship where Ed Wood really admires Bela Lugosi and sort of gives him another shot, and keeps on giving him shots because he still really loves his stuff in the past and still thinks he's a great actor, and even still keeps on casting him in new things because he can't pay rent, and he was addicted to, I think, heroin at the time. And sort of this really sad struggle by Bela Lugosi, this failed actor, in contrast with Ed Wood, this very optimistic young fellow. I really just love their relationship. And actually, Martin Landau won an Oscar for his performance. He actually beat out Samuel Jackson for Pulp Fiction. So that could be like, maybe. I think I might have given a slight edge to Samuel Jackson for Pulp Fiction, even though I love Martin Landau and Ed Wood. And I was really blown away by his performance. And really, when I saw this for the first time, more than any other Tim Burton movie, and maybe I did see it because I did see it later on in life, something like Edward Scissorhands I saw early on, and even A Nightmare Before Christmas. But Ed Wood, because I was so surprised by just Tim Burton being very Tim Burton-esque, because I knew his style, sort of like gothic, and that choice to make it in black and white to make it even feel more realistic. But I think really his direction is so on par for this. He knows Ed Wood's character. He does a great job at mocking him, but also celebrating him. And he knows Bela Lugosi's character, and he surrounds him with this great sort of 40s Hollywood, 30s Hollywood sense of people that sort of come around him and have these great supporting characters like a Bill Murray. And I think he just really understands the character, understands the movie he's trying to tell. He's not necessarily trying to tell a full, complete story of something happens to Ed Wood, but really just chronicling his life, sort of like a slice of life from his directing career, and really understanding the emotional arc to Ed Wood and his relationship with Bela Lugosi. And I think his Tim Burton's direction really is just on par. It really is on par. So that's a little bit why I like Ed Wood, but a couple other ones I want to mention. I'm really a big fan of that A Nightmare Before Christmas, even though it doesn't qualify because Tim Burton did not direct it, and we're talking about great directors. A Nightmare Before Christmas might be my favorite because I have some nostalgia factor to that, but also I always sort of stayed away from it from a long time because I thought it was sort of like for the emo kids or the goth kids, or whatever, and I wasn't one of those guys, so I said, okay, I'm not going to see that. But then I watched the movie, and it's this amazing musical with these incredible visuals, and I really fell in love with it. I actually have a Jack Skellington shirt, which unfortunately is in the wash right now, but it really is a fantastic movie, and I would have picked that probably as my favorite if it counted. Also, Big Fish, another fantastic movie. Big Eyes, Amy Adams, it's just an incredible performance. Won Golden Globe for that, rightfully so, I think so. Edward Scissorhands, of course. Even, yeah, like I said, The Corpse Bride, a great animated film. And Sweeney Todd, that's a really underrated sort of musical. So Tim Burton really has a great career, and he has the duds. And when he hits duds, they sort of hit hard. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Don't Like, Planet of the Apes, Alice in Wonderland. I've seen these movies. They are not good. But when he hits, he does hit well. He does, and even, he has a wide career, so he's going to have some duds, but he's definitely going to have some hits. And I'm never going to give up on Tim Burton. And I think when the right project comes around, we'll be talking about him again. Just like we've been talking about him, since Big Fish, people would say, because they didn't really like Big Eyes. But it's like we've been talking about with Big Eyes, sort of that I think he'll come to his heyday, especially in his later life when he starts to give away his passion projects. And I really respect him because he has had, like I said, a longevity career. And I mean, really starting the superhero genre. That's an incredible thing that he will always go down for that. If anything else, you know what I mean? He's not recognized for anything else. He'll be recognized for starting the superhero genre and really creating that, because I'm a big fan of Batman and Batman Returns. I actually like Batman Returns better because of Danny DeVito and Christopher Walken, just awesome characters. But then you have Jack Nicholson, so he really does an amazing job at that sort of Batman-esque universe. I don't think he would be good on a Tim Burton-esque universe. Sorry, in a Superman universe, but a great in a Batman one. So anyways, that's it. Just to wrap up what I love about Tim Burton, his visual style, and most importantly, his emotional characters, and he has really a great sense of direction and knowing how, unlike Ed Wood, can actually see the entire arc of the plot and doesn't necessarily focus on these big spectacles and what's going to happen, but more why it's happening and what's the emotional reason behind the characters in his movies. And he's able to create great characters and iconic ones and iconic visual imagery for sure, definitely. I remember a lot of his movies and those visual just frames, almost like paintings in a sense. But anyways, guys, my name is Connor Roll. For all those reasons, that's why Tim Burton is a master of controlled chaos. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below, let me know what your favorite Tim Burton movie is and why you like him. And until next time, stay tuned.